Shadows of Vengeance. In the heart of Chicago, Illinois, where the relentless wind from Lake Michigan whipped through the towering skyscrapers like a whisper of forgotten secrets, and the aroma of deep-dish pizza mixed with the sharp tang of street vendor hot dogs, lived a young woman named Ashley Thompson. She was 22 years old, with long chestnut hair that framed her oval face, and hazel eyes that once sparkled with the unbridled optimism of youth, until that light was brutally snuffed out by a tragedy that would redefine her entire existence. Ashley grew up in a close-knit family of Pakistani-American immigrants who had carved out a modest but proud life in the city's vibrant Little Village neighborhood. Their home was a cozy two-story brick house on a quiet, tree-lined street, filled with the sounds of Urdu conversations, the sizzle of homemade biryani in the kitchen, and the faint echo of Bollywood music from the living room TV. Her father, Amir Thompson, born Amir Khan in Lahore before he Americanized his name for easier integration, had been a hard-working entrepreneur. He owned a small chain of convenience stores scattered across the South Side, selling everything from lottery tickets to halal snacks. Amir was a man of quiet dignity, always teaching his daughters the value of honor, family, and perseverance. "In this country, Beta, we build our own legacy," he'd say with a warm smile, his accent a gentle reminder of their roots. But a few years earlier, Amir had died under mysterious circumstances, a sudden heart attack, the doctors claimed, though whispers in the community suggested foul play involving business rivals and unpaid debts. The loss left a void in the family, one that Ashley's mother, Sophia, tried to fill with her devout faith and volunteer work at the local mosque. Sophia, with her embroidered salwar kameez and endless cups of chai, was the glue holding them together. And then there was Faith, Ashley's younger sister, just 18 and a senior at the neighborhood high school. Faith, whose real name was Fatima, but she preferred the Americanized version, was the radiant heart of their home. With her curly dark hair, infectious laugh, and a sketchbook always tucked under her arm, she dreamed of becoming a graphic designer. She had already won a local art contest and was applying to top universities like NYU or the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. "One day I'll design covers for books that change the world," she declared dramatically, her eyes lighting up as she doodled on napkins during family dinners. They were inseparable, sharing secrets late into the night, plotting adventures in the big city, and supporting each other through the challenges of balancing their cultural heritage with American life. But shadows of greed and betrayal crept into their world through their cousin, Kyle Malik, originally Kareem, but he too had adopted a more Western name to fit into Chicago's cutthroat real estate scene. Kyle was in his late 30s, a slick operator with a sharp jawline, designer suits, and eyes as cold as the winter wind off the lake. He had built a modest empire flipping properties and gentrifying neighborhoods, often through ruthless tactics, evicting longtime residents, cutting corners on permits, and leveraging family connections for insider deals. To Kyle, the Thompson family's ancestral ties weren't about sentiment. Back in Pakistan, the Maliks and Khans had shared distant roots, but here in America, Kyle saw the family's remaining asset, a valuable plot of land in suburban Chicago that Amir had inherited and planned to develop into affordable housing, as his ticket to bigger profits. For months, Kyle had pressured the Thompsons to arrange a marriage between Faith and himself. It wasn't about love. It was a calculated move to consolidate control over the property through family ties. "It's for the honor of our heritage," he'd insist during awkward family gatherings at halal restaurants in Devon Avenue, his voice laced with false sincerity. He painted it as a way to keep the wealth in the bloodline, but everyone knew his real motive. The land was worth millions now, with developers circling like vultures. Faith, however, was horrified. "I'm not some pawn in a property game," she'd confide to Ashley, her voice trembling with defiance. She had her own dreams, a boyfriend from school, secret plans to study abroad, and a fierce independence that clashed with the old-world expectations Kyle represented. The tension escalated one humid summer evening during a family barbecue in the backyard. The air was thick with the smell of grilled kebabs and laughter from cousins, but beneath it all simmered unrest. Kyle pulled Faith aside near the garage, his demands turning aggressive. "You'll marry me, or I'll make sure your family's secrets come out," he hissed, referencing vague rumors about Amir's old debts. Debts Kyle himself had manipulated years ago to weaken the Thompsons. Faith, fueled by anger and fear, slapped him hard across the face. "I'll expose you first. You're nothing but a fraud," she shouted, threatening to go to the police with evidence she'd stumbled upon. Forged documents tied to Kyle's shady deals. That night, as the house quieted and the city lights flickered outside the windows, tragedy struck. Ashley, who had been in her room scrolling through social media, heard muffled arguing from the upstairs hallway. She cracked her door open just in time to see Kyle shoving Faith toward the grand wooden staircase that led to the foyer. Faith lost her balance, tumbling down the steps with a sickening series of thuds. By the time Ashley raced downstairs, her sister lay motionless at the bottom, her neck twisted at an unnatural angle, a trickle of blood staining the Persian rug their mother cherished. The Chicago Police Department arrived swiftly, their sirens piercing the night. But the investigation was superficial at best. A tragic accident, slicked on the loose carpet, the lead detective ruled after a brief walkthrough, influenced by Kyle's connections to local politicians and a generous donation to the Police Benevolent Fund. Witnesses, neighbors who had heard the commotion, suddenly clammed up, intimidated by Kyle's reputation. Ashley begged her mother to push for a deeper probe. "He killed her, Mom. We can't let this go," she cried, tears streaming down her face. But Sophia, shattered and terrified, whispered, "Family honor, Ashley. We don't air our dirty laundry. Allah will judge him." The words felt like a betrayal, suffocating Ashley in a web of silence and cultural expectations. Unable to bear the weight of it all, the empty bedroom, the unanswered questions, the smirking face of Kyle at the funeral, Ashley made a life-altering decision. At 22, she packed a single suitcase with clothes, her sister's sketchbook, and a hidden folder of preliminary evidence she'd gathered from Faith's phone. Text messages, photos of suspicious documents. She left a note for her mother, "I need to find justice my way," and boarded a Greyhound bus to New York City, the ultimate symbol of reinvention. She changed her last name slightly to Thorne to evade easy tracking, cut her hair short, and dove into the anonymous hustle of the Big Apple. Years blurred into a relentless grind. Ashley started as a barista in a dingy Manhattan cafe, scraping by on tips and determination. The city was unforgiving. Subway commutes, cramped shared apartments in Queens, nights haunted by nightmares of Faith's fall. But she refused to break. Enrolling in night classes at a community college, she earned a degree in business administration, her mind sharpening like a blade. She interned at a small import-export firm dealing in textiles, drawing on her father's old connections in the industry. Her Pakistani heritage gave her an edge, negotiating with suppliers in Lahore via video calls, blending cultural savvy with American ambition. By her mid-30s, Ashley had transformed. Now Ashley Thorne. She was the CEO of Thorne Imports, a thriving company specializing in ethical, sustainable fabrics sourced from South Asia and exported to high-end fashion houses in the U.S. and Europe. Her office overlooked the Hudson River, a far cry from the little village house. Success brought wealth, a sleek apartment in Brooklyn, designer clothes that masked her scars. But it was all part of a meticulously crafted plan. Over the years, she'd hired private investigators, combed through public records, and built a dossier on Kyle. She discovered his empire was built on fraud, embezzled funds, bribed officials, and even ties to Amir's heart attack, poisoned coffee at a business meeting, orchestrated to eliminate competition. One crisp fall morning, 10 years after Faith's death, Ashley returned to Chicago. She didn't announce her arrival. Instead, she operated from the shadows, checking into a luxury hotel downtown under an alias. Her first move was economic warfare. Using Thorne Imports' leverage, she acquired the key suppliers Kyle depended on for his real estate developments, construction materials from overseas vendors who now answered to her. Prices skyrocketed for him overnight. Contracts fell through. Then came the leaks. Anonymous tips to the Chicago Tribune, exposing Kyle's illegal land grabs in gentrifying areas, tax evasions, and connections to corrupt city council members. Social media buzzed with #JusticeForChicago, viral posts detailing his scandals. Kyle's world unraveled like a cheap thread. His wife, a socialite he'd married for appearances, filed for divorce, taking half his assets. His adult children, embarrassed by the headlines, distanced themselves, moving out of state. Creditors swarmed, foreclosing on properties. His once thriving office in the Loop became a ghost town, employees jumping ship amid rumors of bankruptcy. Desperate, Kyle sold off assets, including the contested family land. But it was too late. The FBI got involved, sniffing around money laundering allegations. The climax came on a rainy evening at the old family home in Little Village, now up for auction. Ashley, disguised in a trench coat and sunglasses, confronted Kyle in the empty foyer where Faith had died. The house echoed with ghosts, the creak of the staircase, the faint scent of Sophia's incense. Kyle, haggard and unshaven, recognized her instantly. You're behind this?" he rasped, collapsing onto the steps. "You took everything from me," Ashley said, her voice steady but edged with years of pent-up rage. She laid out the evidence, recordings, documents, even a confession from a former associate who'd turned state's witness. Kyle, cornered, broke down. "Your father, he ruined me first," he confessed, tears mixing with rain dripping from the leaky roof. "Back in Pakistan, he cheated our family out of inheritance. When we came here, I saw my chance to settle the score. Amir's death, it was payback. Faith, she was collateral." The revelation hit Ashley like a freight train. Memories flooded back. Her father's sudden illness, the unexplained financial ruin before his death. The cycle of vengeance stretched back generations, a feud transplanted from Lahore's dusty streets to Chicago's concrete jungle. Kyle wasn't the origin of the evil, he was a link in a chain of bitterness. In that moment, Ashley stood at a precipice. She could hand over the final evidence to the authorities, ensuring Kyle rotted in prison for murder and fraud. Part of her, the vengeful girl who'd fled Chicago, wanted to watch him burn. But as she looked into his defeated eyes, she saw her own reflection, a woman consumed by hatred, her life a hollow pursuit of retribution. And what of her mother, now living quietly in a senior home, still praying for peace? With a deep, shuddering breath, Ashley turned away. "This ends here," she whispered. She donated the family land to a nonprofit building affordable housing for immigrant families, naming it the Faith Thompson Center, a place where young women could pursue art and education without fear. Kyle faced justice through the leaks. He was arrested weeks later on unrelated charges, his empire in ashes. But Ashley chose not to testify, letting the system handle the rest. Back in New York, Ashley Thorne finally exhaled. She reconnected with her mother over video calls, sharing stories of success and healing. Therapy helped her unpack the trauma, and she started a foundation for victims of family violence, speaking at conferences about breaking cycles of abuse. Revenge had given her power, but forgiveness for herself, for the past, brought freedom. As she walked along the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset, the city lights twinkling like stars, Ashley felt the weight lift. True honor wasn't in destruction. It was in rising above it, building something beautiful from the ruins. And in that, Faith's spirit lived on.